Micro pahonies. So in my last video, I kind of messed up the audio like really badly. It wasn't like you couldn't hear me anymore, it just didn't sound nice. And audio, I believe, is very important. Even though most tech these days want you to believe that on the video audio scale, video is like the most important thing. Like, look at the big TVs with the tiny little sound bars. Or like the beautiful smartphones with their big displays and then the backfiring speakers. However, I believe that this approach is respectfully very backwards. But hey, don't let me decide anything for you, say for yourself. So I recently got my hands on this like new good looking camera and I was like, man, I really want to shoot something with this. But I can't really find a good place to film, so I'm stuck here in my room a little bit, which doesn't really look all that great. So even though it's like fantastic footage, it still kind of looks bad. Okay, so I've gone back to the store, I've like returned a good old expensive camera and I've replaced it with this camera and a really good microphone. So right now this thing should sound fantastic. The only problem is that I also don't really know what to talk about, so that also kind of makes it sound bad. So, which one do you prefer? Oh really? That's interesting. Well, most people tend to prefer like bad video and good audio over the other way around, and I can say for sure I'm one of those people. I mean, I grew up in the days where 360p was like the highest quality video option on YouTube, and somehow we made do. At the same time, like, I can kind of pixel peep some bad video quality away, but I just cannot unhear like annoying wind or static noise in the background, loud peaking audio levels, or just like way too quiet audio forms. I just can't deal with that. And if that's something that you feel rather strongly about too, that you want to have good audio in like your videos, your live streams, or your conversation software like Skype or MSN, the most modern ones, then you need to have a good micro pahony and know how to use it. So that's kind of the goal of today's video. I want to give you like a general overview of what a microphone is, what different kinds there are, and which ones may be best suited for your use case, such that if you're looking for like a microphone, this video may be a good place to start, or such you can learn some fun trivia about microphones before going to sleep, because who the hell can go to sleep these days without some YouTube idiot story telling them to sleep about some like weird tech trivia. Now to start off, what even is a microphone? Because if you're like me a few years back, you hear about microphones and think, oh, they're kind of like this thing here that like musicians tend to use on stage and kind of like hold so close to their face that you think they're almost eating it. Or, oh, it's like one of those things on a stick that camera people use and like hold above like the person that they're filming. And like just looking at it makes my arms look tired. And isn't it something that they put in pigeons these days? Now, whereas I'm no ornithologist, I do know my way around some microphones thanks to like buying heaps of them for this channel over the years. And since a couple of those were actually somewhat good, I think I can give you some insight as to how a microphone works. Now to start off, let's just get a general idea of how a microphone works, or what we want it to do. Basically, we want to yell into this bit, and then have like electronic signal come out of that bit that like the computer can understand. That's basically all a microphone needs to do. But how does that look like inside? So here I have a very simple representation of a microphone, where I can also show you some of the insights, which are not entirely accurate. I mean, like, they were made by me. Don't have high expectations of me, but they can kind of give you the main components of what happens inside the microphone. Because first off, we need to have a thing that can kind of like capture the sound waves. Like whenever I yell, like the air moves, because that's what air does and what sound is, and this thing needs to capture the sound waves. And then we need to have some sort of like electronics here that can kind of like convert those sound waves into like things that the computer can understand. And then we need to have a wire and a connector that can kind of like connect it to the PC or the thing that we want to record with. In microphone terms, these things are called the diaphragm, the capsule, and the connectors. Now, since the diaphragm is that thing that captures the sound waves created by your mouth noise, basically like the bigger it is, the more of those waves it can capture. It's kind of like a speaker here, whereas like a speaker like has this diaphragm thing, but then like it uses it to create the sound waves. The microphone uses it to capture the sound waves. And the bigger it is, the more it can capture. That doesn't mean that it's better in quality, but just as a general principle, I got like my worst microphones that I could find. This thing here is like some set of earbuds that I got from my drawer, and this is like a thing that I also have from my drawer, which actually my very first mic that I actually recorded videos with. Now, as you can see here, that right there is the microphone. So you can kind of imagine how big that diaphragm is. And this right here is the other microphone's diaphragm, which is not going to be that much bigger, but just a little bit bigger. And why don't we just have a listen to what the difference is between these two? I woke up this morning, right, and decided, fuck it. Even though I'm almost done with my computer science degree, I just need to go pick up the paper, and that is it. I was thinking I might as well quit. You know, I don't really see a future in this. instead, I was thinking podcasts. Like, I've really been listening to podcasts. I enjoy them, but I will need a microphone if I want to start recording my own podcast. So that's a problem. Or not, because guess what? I was feeling in my pants. I took out my earbuds, took a look at them, and look, they have a microphone. So yeah, welcome to my 2-hour-long podcast. This is the very first episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome everyone to the second episode of the podcast. Today we have a brand new thing. It's called topics. It's things that I think up beforehand that I want to talk about. Like for instance, I want to talk today about how I got into videos. So one day I was like, hey, I want to make some videos. However, I have to make sure that these videos sound good, right? So, I dug through my tech bag, which is like literally just a bag full of old wires and stuff, and found like the most 1990s cheapo looking microphone and was like, oh hell yeah, this thing's gonna be great. And yeah, I'm using it right now, and I really do hope it's better than the earbuds though, because complaints have started coming in about the audio quality. Now, as I said before, these microphones are really not good. Like we're not talking high-end here. We're pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel with these two. But what you can hear is that, like, the dirty buds right here, like the tiny diaphragm is, like, trash. And this thing is, I mean, it's not too bad. Basically, every microphone will have a diaphragm, which is just the thing cold that captures the sound. And this can be, most of the time, like a big, like, circular thing. But it could also be a ribbon or whatever. As long as it can move on the sound waves, that's what we need it to do. Now next up is the capsule, which is often like right next to the diaphragm, as it will have to take the diaphragm's movements and convert it into like the electricity stuff. Now generally there are two different types of capsules. We have dynamic microphones and we have condenser microphones. Now, a dynamic microphone basically has like a magnet in between like a coil of wires, and based on like how the diaphragm moves, it creates like different electrical signals which can then be interpreted as sound. Like this is, if you've ever seen a speaker, like it's literally opposite of a speaker, where here in a speaker, like the magnet moves the diaphragm, here it's the other way around. Actually, here is like a crazy cool little thing that I discovered during the very scientific process of plugging my headphone and microphone jacks into the wrong slot.
Okay, so I've just been getting like loads of complaints about my podcast saying the audio quality is absolutely unbearable and I need to invest in some better audio equipment. But hey, here's my problem, people. I don't have any money. So what can I do now? Like, I can't do anything until I actually had this great idea, this fantastic idea. Like, how I can just like buy a high quality pair of headphones and then use that as my microphone. The only problem though is that like it kind of looks a bit weird. So I don't know if this is the real solution.
Isn't that crazy? Like, those are like dynamic microphones. Like, they're basically just like speakers, but then in reverse. And because of that, like, they're pretty much just like plug and play. And even though I kind of messed this one up, they tend to be rather durable. Like, they can kind of, they're cheap to make. They tend to be rather durable and like can stand some water, which is why these things can kind of like go for the washer and be okay. On the other hand, like the kind of downside of these things are that they don't capture the high frequencies all that well, and overall like they only capture like the audio just like right around them. So if you want to have more specialty use cases, dynamic microphones are not really gonna cut it. If you want to have a microphone that often tends to sound a little bit better but it's also more expensive, you gotta look into condenser microphones. So whereas like dynamic microphone basically has like a magnet with some wires around it, a condenser microphone has like this little extra thing behind the diaphragm which is connected with some wires to a power source. Now this right here is what they call the condenser. And the idea of a condenser is that like there's two things, with one being the diaphragm and the other being another thing, the condenser. And as the diaphragm moves, like there's different space between the diaphragm and the condenser. And because there's power running through it, you get different voltages, and because of that, you get an electrical signal. Don't ask me to explain anything more than that. I'm not an electrician. It's just kind of like the basic idea of how it works. As I said, condenser microphones need to have a power source to enable that voltage to be present such that you can detect the difference. As such, you will not really find like 3.5mm jack like condenser microphones, as this format can't carry any power. Connectors that can carry power are the USB format or the XLR format. Overall, condenser microphones can capture more detail of the sound, and they can also be made for specific purposes. But at the same time, that also makes them more expensive. Is that price increase worth the difference? Well, let's have a listen. So here we have a Sennheiser dynamic microphone and a Rode condenser microphone. Now, there's something that I should probably have said at the start of all of this, but these two mics right here, as you can see, are nothing to like. So like this one here is wireless and supposed to be like walked around with. This one's supposed to be like on a stand in a studio, like you talking to it for voiceovers. So there is more differences between these two than just being like dynamic and condenser. Like the only thing that I want to do is like give you a little bit of an illustration, just like give you an idea of what this sounds like. But keep in mind, this is not a perfect test at all. Also, I am not an official tester. Like, I'm just an idiot who likes to talk about stuff, and this time it's microphones, but like, don't take these as like A/B test. This is what a dynamic microphone sounds like, and this is what a condenser microphone sounds like, because there's way more differences. But yeah, it's just a fun little example. Enjoy. So I was watching some idiot on YouTube talk about how this is some kind of dynamic microphone, but I didn't really listen to what it meant. So right now I'm just kind of rolling with my idea that dynamic means that I can just like dynamically turn this thing around and this thing will just like pick it up perfectly everywhere. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it seems kind of fine. Now I thought, let's go try and do the same thing with this like condenser microphone that I have, but honestly it just kind of sounds like crap. Instead, if I just move my mouth really close to this, it actually sounds quite good. So I'm beginning to think that condenser microphone has to do with like me having to condense the space between my mouth and my microphone. I honestly don't really know what it means. I'm just using these words to kind of make myself sound smart, and I think so far it's working. So, what do you think? I personally feel that like the condenser mic sounds better, but you don't want to move it around. This thing is like way better for like moving around if you want to do something in the field. So it really depends on your setup. If you have a quiet studio, take the condenser microphone. But if you have like, you got to move around, you got to like deal with weather situations that isn't controlled, I'd take the dynamic microphone. And that's kind of like my takeaway of like these two microphone types. Condensers do tend to sound better, but they're also like more expensive and like a lot more of the times like very specific to one use case. And dynamics are like a little bit more versatile, more plug and play, and also more durable, which kind of makes them my choice if I just want to like go somewhere and I don't have a great controlled environment. There is also other mic types, but I'm not going to get into those because generally you will not find them in the wild all that much. Now with that, we've basically covered like the most important parts of microphones. Like we've gone over the get out of here. We've gone over like the diaphragm, we've gone over like the capsule, and we've gone over, oh wait, we haven't gone over the connectors yet. I've showed you the connectors, but we haven't really explored them very well. So this right here is the 3.5mm jack. I feel like most devices, most modern devices, except like crappy smartphones, will have like a 3.5mm jack, which means that this is the thing that if you want to like plug and play, you want to like roll with it, you just want to like have something that kind of works, this thing is your go-to. However, if you want to have your recording be actually fun to listen to, I'd go for either USB or XLR, because there's this one tiny little problem with like 3.5mm jacks that it can best be displayed by just listening to absolutely nothing. Do you hear that? Do you hear that noise coming from the 3.5mm jack? Well, my friend, that is static. And it's the absolute worst thing to discover when you start recording audio. Because basically you can have the best audio setup, the best microphone with like the best diaphragm, the best capsule. However, at the end of the day, the audio signal will still have to go through electric wire, and that is this thing right here. It will go through this analog cable, and there's a little problem that you may still remember if you use FM radio and use one of these antennas. Like, if you move it about across some wires, you're gonna get interference, and oh boy, is interference annoying to deal with. It doesn't even need to be like other cables. Like, I'm using this monitor right here to capture my like game sounds whenever I'm streaming, and they go to this mixer here via this like 3.5mm jack right here. And honestly, I'm constantly getting static from this because there's some ground difference between the PC and the mixer, and that means that there's like electricity running between the monitor to there or whatever, but it just gives me like heaps of static, and there's nothing I can do about that. Like, oh, static is such a pain in the ass that even if you can get one of these somewhat to work, it's just so rare that I still prefer the reliability of like USB and XLR. That's because with like a USB microphone, like it basically picks up the audio and then within it has some like circuitry that converts all your audio into ones and zeros. And then once that gets passed through this cable, like interference doesn't really affect it. Like you don't really have interference when you're like sending data over your phone. At the same time, you have like XLR right here, which does have like analog audio on it, but it's also balanced, which means that like it's got multiple connections, as you can see, which means that it's like way more robust against static than just like this stupid little thing. Basically, I would say if you want to have consistently good audio, go get a USB or an XLR microphone, because with 3.5mm, there may be good microphones out there, but I have not gotten good consistent results, and I've gotten so many hours trying to fix static that I'm just completely done with them. That said though, why would you even go for USB? If like XLR is all the like good professional microphones that everyone uses, why not just go for XLR and screw USB? Well, as you may have noticed, like this connector here, it kind of looks weird. Like if you had to plug this into your computer, where would it go? Well, that's where this thing comes in. This is the Rode AI1, which is kind of like an audio interface. Basically what it has is like, it has a connector where one of these things can like just plug into, and on the other hand, like you have the USB connection that connects to your PC. Basically what this does is the same as like the USB microphone, where like it takes the sound, analog sound, and then converts it into ones and zeros. That's what this thing does for XLR microphones. Which means that if you want to use an XLR microphone on a computer, you also need to buy this audio interface, which isn't all that cheap. With this Rode here being like a little over $100, and this mixer panel that connects like multiple microphones being like over $400 just for the interface alone. As long as you're not planning on investing like hundreds of bucks into like your high-end audio setup, I would actually not recommend going with XLR for your very first audio setup. That's because basically like the high end of XLR can sound really good. However, these microphones cost like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. But when it comes to like the general USB market, I honestly find them very good. Like, have a listen to Samsung's C01U USB microphone versus this Rode NT1A XLR microphone, where this is a microphone I got for $30 secondhand, and this is an XLR mic which I got for like $230. Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the podcast, where today we're going to be talking about the time that I tried to find a job. I went to look for jobs, but all the jobs required computer science degrees that I don't have, since I didn't go out and grab my diploma. If you remember that from episode 1, good callback. In good news though, I actually found $35. Yes, it was like in my washing machine. I've never had so much money in my life, and I don't know where it came from. It's not to worry about though, because I already spent $30 on this USB mic, which I feel like an actual professional podcaster now, and hopefully things will start looking up for me in the future, because I'm actually kind of running out of money now. It's episode 4 of the podcast, and oh, so much has happened. Remember last time when I found like $35 in the washing machine? Well, I spent $30 on the mic, but saved the last $5 to buy a lottery ticket. And guess what? I won like 200 something bucks. But hey, you know, that may not seem like much, but I immediately spent that on this XLR mic thing, which seemed super professional, and I really hope that for like $200 it's like better sounding. I don't know. I really hope so, because it's not like I need the money for food or anything. Not at all. In other news, I just started a Patreon. And can you tell the difference? I mean, I sort of can, but is that difference $200 worth just for the microphone, not accounting for the entire audio interface? Like, I don't know. And that is why I would say if you want to have a microphone that gives you like reliable, good enough sounding audio quality for like video calls or like content creation, go with USB. It's got like the plug and playness of like the 3.5mm jack, and it's got like the good audio quality of the XLRs. So well then, that's it. Video's over. Go for the USB mic. Or wait, hold on, you see. If the USB mic is so much better, why the hell would anyone, like you, invest so much money into an XLR setup? Like, that doesn't make sense. I saw that entire mixer panel. What are you hiding from us? Well, remember how I said that like one of the specialities of like condenser microphones is that they can have like different purposes for which it can be used? Well, that's something that XLR microphones really shine at. Like, for example, when I compared these two mics to each other, I did that because these two are very similar to each other in the type of style that they are. They're both condensers, which like work very well if you like sit very close to it. And this one likes to move. And I feel like most USB mics that I've encountered are like this close-up, in-your-face condenser type microphone. Now the thing is, like, I do not enjoy having a microphone in my face while I'm talking to you on the camera. I feel it's like it puts distance between us. That's why I want to have the microphone out of frame, which is why I'm using this thing right here, which is the Audio-Technica AT875R. Beautiful name, I know. Now that there is a shotgun microphone, and shotgun microphones are very different than these types of microphones when it comes to like the pattern that they can pick up. Now what do I mean with like the pickup pattern? Well, as I said, like these microphones you need to hold close to your face in order for them to like pick up the best audio sound. I didn't know this for the longest time, and since I didn't want to have the microphone in my face, what I would basically do is like take this microphone here and then put it all the way over here, kind of at the space where the other shotgun microphone is at. Now, if I were to have this microphone right here and talk into it, it would sound somewhat like this, which I don't have this microphone in my face right now, but holy shit, this sounds bad. And that is the strength of like XLR microphones. Like you have a wide range of very good microphones that all have different strengths. As I said, this thing here really works well from one location. Like the pickup pattern is just like right in front of it. This one is like a shotgun, so it really captures like a lot of audio right in front of it and not a lot around it. This thing right here captures everything around it very well, but also from like a very small range. And this right here is like a lapel microphone, which you can like stick on your clothes, such that like if I'm moving about or if I'm like shooting in the field and I cannot have like a microphone in my face, or I do not want to be standing up like this, I want to do something, I can clip it onto my clothes and it will actually be able to pick up my voice right around here, such that I can still have good audio. And that is why I go for XLR microphones, because they're just like, they're more niche and they have high quality special cases for which you can use them. So I'd say like, if you are in the market for like a high case, very good sounding like microphone, go for XLR. If you want to have something which is just like good enough and you want to have like great quality for like a relatively low price, with relatively low price, let's say like between like 50 to 100 bucks, go USB. If you really don't care, you just want to have something that you can have right now and just sound somewhat good, like for voice calls or something, like, you know, you're in your team session, like you're playing games, you don't need to record it for anything, go for a 3.5. 3.5 is still very, very versatile, very strong, and like, yeah, I don't think the quality of these microphones, I mean, especially not this one, but generally like 3.5 millimeters doesn't tend to be all that great. I've not found fantastic 3.5 millimeters, but if that's all you can get, it's still better than like your inbuilt microphone or like whatever you have in your webcam or your phone. So phones have gotten quite good these days as well. I know it's been like a really long video. Overall, like we looked at a couple of things. We looked at like the different types of microphones where like dynamics are like relatively cheaper. They're more durable. You have condensers, which work with like the power thing, which are only on like USB and XLR, and like they sound a little bit better, but they're also more expensive. And you have the three different types where you have like, you know, you have the 3.5, the USB, the XLR, and generally like the bigger the microphone also is, you know, the diaphragm, the bigger it is, the better it sometimes tends to be. Those are just some general rules that I go by when I look for microphones. That said though, keep in mind that absolutely none of this is fact, okay? These are just like general things that I've come to understand, but at the same time, I'm also not an expert. I really wanted to use this video to like get an idea as to like what the field of microphones looks like, what is good and what is not good, but also make sure that if you want to buy something, if you want to get into something, do your research, like listen to different YouTube videos. Like what I really did when I was looking around for these is like, hey, I want to find like a USB microphone. Look for like cheap USB microphones. You find like the Samsung CO110U, you have like the Yeti ones, you have like a whole range of like cheap USB microphones right now, which are actually quite good, and you can compare them and then see what works well for like your price range. Same here, this one is one that's like often recommended for like podcasting. I really like this for like voiceovers, but again, like I ended up liking this thing here way more for content creation. So like I barely use this now because this thing is way better. Yeah, a lot of this will still be like trial and error as you like try to figure out what works best for you. And I really hope that this video kind of like lowers your error rate by me like giving my knowledge that I've learned for like, hey, you know, when I wanted to like have less static on this microphone, I went for like this fucking like 3.5 millimeter jack, and that didn't change anything. Or when I had this thing and I wanted to have something better, I bought this and it was like $200 more expensive, but the difference here for what I was using it for wasn't really $200 difference. At least not to me, not to my use case. And I really hope that that's something that you can learn from this video. If you're out here and you're thinking like, you know, I know a lot more about microphones. Why the hell did you not touch on things like impedance, like your audio setup, like soundproofing your room, that sort of stuff? That's because this is all like a general introduction video. What I want to do is I want to make sure that, like, you know, at least that there's like different types of microphones. There's like a condenser, there's like, you know, a shotgun versus this, what's the difference between that? And especially for the people who are here for the very first time who like don't know anything about this, don't worry if this is not something that you can grasp right at the start. Like, I didn't get this, it took me like years to understand, and I really hope that I can kind of like give you some guidance as to like entering this world of microphones. That said, if you still have any questions, if something is unclear, or you want to know more about a certain type of microphone or whatever, just like throw it in the comments down below. Maybe you can just like respond with a reply, or I make a separate video about it, because maybe it's something that I've run into as well, and it's frustrated the hell out of me. And if you really like what I do and you want to support the channel financially, like check out Overtime for like $1 a month. I make like extra videos, where this week we're doing something that's not audio related. I thought about doing something audio related, but I was like, no, Raspberry Pi. That's where it's at. Basically, Raspberry Pis are like these small little computers that can do like a whole sorts of things, and I've never ever used one of these. This one has been laying around for like quite some time, and I finally think it's time that I boot it up, I install the OS on it, and just take a look at it, like what it can do, such that like in the future we may be able to like do something with this. So that's the plan for today's Overtime. If you want to support that, go check out Patreon or like Twitch subscriptions. If you want to see more about that, if you want to learn more about it, there's a link in the description to like tell you all about it, answer all your questions, and also have a way that you can maybe access that all for free. So yeah, that's it for now. This video is way too long. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.